Hello, everybody. Rick DiClemente with Astrology Unplugged. Welcome tonight and welcome you YouTubers. And we are following up with a series of talks about transits. And one thing led to another. And what tonight is really meant to be is finding a chart showing when a transit hits a certain point, how did those things exchange their energy? And perhaps what did happen. So I apologize if you got the impression that I'm going to read the whole chart, because I'm not. I wish there were thousands of me, but there just aren't. Anyhow, we had some homework left over from last week where we were starting to do a lot of work past 3-4 weeks with transits hitting the natal chart. And I'm anxious to see what Susan has done, because Susan, I'm asking her to unmute. She's got a drawing ready for us about some. Tell us what the drawing's about.
This is what the transits do, and then how you ride them is what is up to you.
There you go. There's a Sagittarian. Did you know Sagittarians love horses?
Oh, yeah.
They love horses. It's a very Sagittarian thing. That's beautiful, Susan.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Now, we had other homework. I asked people, you see, we got to get astrology out of your mind where you're thinking about it. And you got to start seeing your chart and your chart, getting to know your chart and when planets go around and hit certain things. Then the chart comes alive. Look at that tonight. 2 men. Ooh, Sigmund, me and you and all these chicks. How about that? Got all these women. So Sigmund looks extremely excited. So, okay, so anyhow, who looked in their chart and saw a planet going by and something happened? Let's start with, did you have your hand up, Mandy? No, she didn't. Let's start with Claudia. And let me get your chart up. Hold on, please. So I'll just pause things. Okay, now we're on with Claudia's chart. We're going to share the screen with Claudia's chart. Go ahead, Claudia.
So, can you animate it?
I can animate it, yeah. Well, let's just see what happens here.
It's no big deal if you can't.
I can animate it. Getting it animated and getting you to see it is 2 different things.
Oh, right.
Here we go. So what day would you like to go to?
Let's go to September. Let's go to October 1st, 2009.
Okay, so we see the outer wheel is where the planets were. October 9th, October 1st of 2009. Your birth chart never moves. It's in the middle. And what happened?
Well, from September 2009 through December 2009, really, and for many years, but it started then. I separated I realized my marriage was ending, and it was very tumultuous, really awful. And so from September to December, I looked at those months because those were really intense months. Pluto was 4 degrees away from my natal Pluto, and it was squaring it by square, I mean.
Wait. Okay. Pluto was squaring your Pluto by 4 degrees. Yep, and it was in your 8th house. That would start it up. That's right. There's the Pluto, square Pluto. If you're not familiar with a square, it's a right angle. It's a tension point in astrology. So Pluto was big enough and powerful enough, even though it's 4 degrees away, to start trouble with that Pluto.
Oh, yeah, it ignited a lot of things those 3 months. And then not soon after, but a couple of months after, I don't remember, Saturn transited over my natal Pluto.
Saturn went over natal Pluto here. And the whole thing is kept very simple by this fact. It was either you get divorced or you get your self-worth completely crushed.
Yeah.
It was that simple. That's Pluto going into the 8th house, and you had several months of Pluto previously coming into the 8th house, and that's the house where we talk about, am I going to allow you to affect how I feel about myself? And it came to, and if you hadn't been doing much work in that area, it came to an ugly crisis point.
And it was, I realized, and I don't know the dates, but Mars retrograded in Leo a couple of months after that, and hit my natal sun closely, like a couple of times over and over.
Went back
And this one really got me. That year, a month, August is my birthday. There was an eclipse at 13 degrees of Aquarius. So my sun,
right opposite your sun.
Right opposite my sun.
Right.
And it was the day after my birthday, that eclipse. So that is so relationship and just so much happened.
Okay, there's enough of that one. We're going to keep talking about that. Now, the eclipse opposing your sun, anything opposite, it triggers the 7th house.
Mm-hmm.
Because the object is being hit. If you put the object that's being hit on the ascendant or the 1st house, you put the other planet on its where it's coming from, and that was from the 7th house. So that was the final trigger. But what was really going on was Pluto was starting to square to Pluto even before it was in the same sign, even before it was square. So it was coming on for years. And when Pluto went into the same sign where it squared, things started getting really ugly and scary. Even to the point of not only losing yourself, but you were really threatened at that time, losing your all your money, your job, everything. Just everything is threatened.
I did that whole Pluto. Yeah.
That is why in astrology, when you're in a bad relationship, it is just the worst thing you could do. And we see that when Pluto came, we're not going to even get into all the other stuff, your power arrived. And it often arrives through powerful people. And Pluto often arrives and somebody tries to help you and somebody tries to hurt you. And it might be the same person at the same time. These are very common Plutonian effects. So what happened with you in terms of getting involved with some people that are pretty powerful?
Well, that whole Pluto transit, I mean, let's face it, it's still in Capricorn. It also, a few years later, I became involved with this very powerful guy who, so at that point, Pluto was opposing my Venus and my Saturn. And it was, oh boy, talk about another hit of who am I when I'm with you? How am I going to do this? How am I going to have self-respect? It was changed me forever. And it was fantastic. It was horrible, but it was fantastic.
Oh, sure. And that's very common Pluto story. And the main thing is that person was the delivery man of your Pluto transit. And that person probably was the instigator of you finding and discovering your power.
Totally.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent story. Totally appropriate. You started off with the most appropriate thing you could. Thank you, Claudia. Very good. Other people who had something hit in their chart. Yes, we're unmuting Susan. What did you have hit in your chart, Susan?
I did my homework.
Okay.
We have options. Would you like major surgeries, broken bones?
Hold on, please. I need to get everybody seeing things here. Okay, what is the date these things happen?
So sobriety date, it looks interesting. September 2nd, 1986, I got sober.
Okay, where are the major planets at that time?
We got Jupiter conjunct Sun, transiting Jupiter.
Jupiter was on your sun.
Yep. Transiting Saturn conjunct midheaven.
Very good.
Looks like transiting Uranus is also conjunct Sun, and transiting Neptune is opposite Moon.
Well, that's really, 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 really major. When you got Jupiter and Uranus going over your sun, that was 2011.
No, this is September 2nd, 1986.
Okay, so there was a pattern before that. Okay. So what Jupiter did is it brought you the faith that you could do it, and Uranus brought you the individuality that carried you through it. So we see Jupiter and Uranus hitting the sun when all those things happened. What were the years of the broken bones?
Oh, so we got, would you like arms, legs,
I
noses?
just want to do one leg and move on because we got so many people.
Okay.
Just give me one of your legs.
Okay, the leg, January 17th, 2021. And that was, we had Uranus and Mars, sextile Mars, and we had Neptune square Sun.
You had Uranus sextile to Mars.
Yep, and also Mars sextile Mars.
Yeah, well, that'll do it. And that would be the Pisces being involved would be the lower foot, but the ankle and the lower leg was the Uranus part. And it happened really quickly.
Yes.
Okay. Did you find what I've been telling you for months now, that something was happening during those months approaching that, where was symbolic of you started to go forward and you stopped yourself?
The closest I can get to that is I had bought my RV, but I couldn't do anything till spring. So it was sitting in storage and I was in the process of waiting to get rid of everything. So I had to sell off everything, but that hadn't started yet.
Now that's intriguing that even now, even though you were going to do it and you did do it, still led to a broken bone. Okay,
Yep.
I would tell you, if you were a client in my office, that during those weeks and during those months, you were still having some inner debate about doing it, especially, do I deserve to do it? Do I deserve to get free? That's where it's really dangerous. That's why you see so many people's stories of they start a new life, they leave somebody, they get a new apartment, they step out, and then the house burns down. It's not uncommon. It doesn't, they're not one-to-one, but what happens is a lot of people, when they start to liberate themselves, they start to feel like they don't deserve it. Now we're getting interruptions here from on my monitor. I've had nothing but trouble recently with my internet going in and out. Thank you, Susan. Okay, who's next? Who had things happen in their chart on a date when something hit their chart? Who in their group? Come on, Naomi, you must have had something hit.
Yeah, back in would be around the 14th of February, 2007.
Hold on one moment, please. Naomi, in 2007, what was the month?
February.
Okay, now let me get this up on the screen. Okay, now I got the things tuned up and now you can see them. If you can tell me approximate date.
About the 14th of February.
Around Valentine's Day.
Yeah. I had numerous things happen over those couple of months. My sister had a car accident and then died a couple of months later. My husband, I went through a very bad divorce.
Okay, one thing at a time now. When you come to your sister, The third house, I don't know how this is found out, but it's true. The third house rules your brothers and sisters. So you find the sign that's on, here's the natal chart. It's no use unless I explain it to you. Here's the natal chart. You find out on that cusp what sign is on the cusp of the third house. And we see this Taurus. Taurus is ruled by Venus. So your Venus being hit at any time in your life by anything is symbolic of something's possibly happening to your brothers and sisters. So we see Venus was at 21 of Aries in the natal chart. You see Mars is 1 degree from exactly square to Venus, the time of the death, or that particular date. Mars square the Venus. And you also see 1, 2, 3. Uranus is trine to that Venus. Saturn is trine to that Venus. So during that death, Saturn was trine to the Venus while Mars was squaring it. What else happened?
Went through a divorce.
And Mars was the brother, the male. And the divorce happened at this time?
It all happened around the same time, and I lost everything, the house, everything.
Okay, when you have something like this happen, we're looking at Pluto or Neptune. Only those two planets are big enough to bring down the curtain. So
yeah,
this is the natal chart. This is the approximate date. We're looking at Saturn is transiting your Uranus. It's exact almost. In Uranus, you're in Aries, you're not an Aquarian, but Uranus rules your 12th house. We see that your ruling planet is Mars, because you're in Aries, being 17 Cancer. Pluto, we want to start with Pluto. Pluto's at the top of the chart at 28. So Pluto has been flirting with the midheaven during those couple of years there. And Neptune is at the 20th degree of Aquarius. See, do you see the fork that your Uranus got caught in? Shish kebab, Saturn, Neptune with your Uranus in the middle.
yeah.
So your Uranus is the ruler of the 12th house, which is the house of undoing. It's the most negative house in a chart where tumultuous things like this can happen. Now, when we see, this is not easy, when we see your Uranus is caught between Saturn and Neptune, we see that the reason these things are happening, and you're how old?
61 now, yeah.
No,
Oh.
in 2007.
So I would have been, I was about 45. Yeah, 45.
Okay. Were you having difficulty being yourself?
In extreme, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
My husband
This is
was
why
very-
it happened. This is the
Yeah.
why it happened. Because the Uranus was hit. And Uranus is what? I keep telling you every week. Uranus is the source of your individuality. And if
Yeah.
if your individuality saying, hey, let's go do this, and the captain up here says, no, we're not going to do that, and you suppress it, then the Saturn and Neptune jump up, pile up on it. And what happens inside with your Saturn and Neptune hitting your Uranus, your insides are saying, I don't know what I gotta do. I'm ready to go as a self. I'm an Aries. I'm ready to go as a unique me. But every time I send up the flag request to be myself, it gets shot down. And I can't take it anymore. And I don't know what I'm gonna have to do to myself to get through here. So short of dying, which you could have done, short of dying, the Saturn and Neptune bunched up on you to show you how serious the damn thing was. So after those awful things, which I'm very sorry about, after those terrible things happen, What is it that happened to you gradually that you started to get the point and the connection here that I've got to be myself?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Yeah. I went and became independent and started working in a Buddhist temple, and my whole life changed. Yeah.
Okay, now that's a fabulous story. And that's unusual that you were getting hit by Saturn and Neptune at the same time. Pluto wasn't far from your midheaven, but that's the kind of stuff that happens.
Yeah, it was a horrific, terrible time. Yeah.
Remember, your insides are always screaming to the adult at the top because it wants to go do things. The adult, the true adult, its only job is, do we have the money? Is it safe? It's not to be a critical parent. It's not supposed to be a mean parent, a chastising parent. And too many of us, if we have negative parents, we recreate them up top. So can I go to the playground and can I skip rocks on the water and can I have ice cream? No, you can't. You're always goofing around. Shut up. Boy, that's bad. That's bad news. That's bad news because yourself inside is listening. The real you's listening. And then when people say someday, that's when the certain planet's going to come up. And in your case, your Uranus is sitting there all that time, all those years in your life. And here comes Saturn on one end of it. Here comes Neptune on the other. And I think Mars was involved too. But if the big ones get involved, you can be killed. When you get killed, it's because your insides decide that you do not deserve to live. So it asks the universe brings a Mack truck in your lane. Basically, that's the synopsis. Very good stuff, Naomi. I'm so glad you got out of it. And I would imagine that once you started doing that, things started getting better and better for you as an individual.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it turned around. Yeah.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you, Naomi. Anybody else have a story? Yes, we have Erica. Let me get your chart, Erica. Start telling us the story while I'm getting it ready.
So it doesn't matter if you were in a different place other than where you were born when these things happen, right?
Doesn't matter.
Okay, so I just lost it. I'm looking at the wrong one. Oh, where are you? Come back here. So it was 19. Oh, sorry. I had it and I was trying to paste it onto something. And
what year was it?
Okay. So it was June the 11th, 1988.
Okay, there you go. Inner chart, outer planets.
Neptune was square Neptune that day.
Neptune was squaring Neptune, and outer planets don't have to be exact by the minute. All they have to be is in the vicinity with something else piling on.
And Pluto was squaring Pluto.
Pluto was squaring Pluto. Look at that.
And Mars was in the 5th house. And Saturn was in the 3rd house. And Pluto was conjunct Chiron in my 1st house.
Okay, you had Saturn opposite your Chiron. You had Pluto square to Pluto. And you had Neptune square to Neptune. That's all you need. And you see, when that Pluto sets up that whole year.
Saturn opposite Chiron?
When the Pluto square Pluto sets up for that whole year and the Neptune sets up, they set in motion. They're already they're in aspect. They're waiting to be triggered by something else. So when transiting Mars comes around, or if the transiting sun comes around and piles on top of that angle, that sensitive degree, or that sensitive cross, then boom. And what happens?
Oh, I'm just looking at Neptune, Saturn, and Uranus also sitting on the IC down there. But of course, that would have been in Regensburg, Germany, not in
But
New
this
York
is
where I was
these
living.
two are 10 degrees away. So what
Okay.
happened around this date, June of
That
80?
was my wedding day.
Okay.
Got married.
Okay. So when you had the wedding date, did you have untoward things happen or just great things?
It was my wedding day. It was great.
Okay, we're not going to just look at one date. Okay, we're looking at
Okay.
a whole massive period. This tells
Okay.
me, that your wedding caused landmark changes in your whole life.
Oh, it definitely did.
Now,
And you
why
want
is
to know
that?
when I got divorced before that?
No, I want to go back to 88. So you're
Okay.
telling me that this date was largely positive.
Yeah, I had been
Okay,
married
and I'm going to
before
tell
for
you,
5 years.
I'm telling you that planets like this, it's really unusual that your marriage was a success, which it has been, because you got too much
Wow.
pressure. There's just too much
We're
pressure.
married 36 years
Yeah.
or however many years it's
Well,
been.
this will show you that even heavy duty planets can hit when wonderful things happen. But
Well,
you,
that's because our charts are very lined up with each other.
I have no idea why it happened.
We're
None.
we have a lot of compatibilities, and we have, like, my ascendant is right on his sun. His sun is right on my moon. Um, and the funny thing is, like, physically, we're always bumping into each other. We're like always in the same place at the same time, trying to
Well,
occupy
you're
the same
talking you're
space
talking about some really
physically.
difficult stuff now to start lining all that up. But your synastry must be really wonderful because you had enough going on those couple of days that you could have had a really bad thing happen to you.
Well, I had a lot of really bad things
Now
happen to me
you
prior to
see,
that.
the
And then
reason
this was a
the,
happy
re-
day.
the reason you don't want these kind of heavy planets on your marriage chart is because the theme of these two planets have many different sides to them. And that chart, if you lock it down and do a chart on the day of the marriage, that chart's going to have those aspects in it to your natal chart, and it's going to keep getting triggered. Okay, let's keep getting on to other people. Thanks for that. That's a really good story how something great happened with you at that time. I want to get on to some other people now, mainly people who've not been with us. Okay, let's go to Kathy P. Kathy, in the Midwest, right? Oklahoma City.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
we're going to go to Kathy here. I'm going to pause the chart. Okay, now we got Kathy F here. Now I'm just going to pick a date. All right, here's your birth chart. We see the
Okay.
year, Virgo. We see this is where the planets are now. By the way, it's going to be a big deal next week. I'm going to do next week's show as a preemptive strike to the eclipse that's coming on election day.
Oh boy.
I'm going to be talking about the eclipse that's sitting with Uranus on the sun and the eclipse. Uranus sun eclipse all together on November 8th at 7 o'clock in the morning. There's some really good things in that chart that I think are very favorable, and there's some really, really scary things that are kind of threatening civil war. But I think there's really a lot of good things happening. And I'm going to show you how difficult it is to do a chart like that. But we're going to spend all of next week looking forward to the week after, which is November 8th. Now, when I look at your chart, I'm looking for sensitive points. We see the Sun Saturn. Okay. And I just was looking at one of the greatest singers I ever saw in my life or heard, and she had Sun Saturn exactly at the same degree. So don't worry about the books telling you that you can't express yourself. So let's go back in time. We see Uranus. This is where Uranus is now. Let's go back in time. Uranus started here. Let's go back in time when Uranus was here opposite your moon. Let's go back about 40 some years. We're going to take Uranus all the way back to here. (19 degrees, 20 degrees of Taurus). Here it is. Now, right here, around 1979, give me 6 months either way, around 1979. Okay?
Okay.
79, you are 31 years old. 79.
Okay.
You just had your Saturn return. Just before that,
Okay.
Uranus unexpectedly opposes your moon. At that time, what happened?
Well, in January of 1980, my appendix ruptured.
I don't know what planet rules the appendix.
Yeah, I don't know either, but that was the big thing that happened to me because my marriage was kind of getting to be on the skids and yeah,
And you blew up from inside.
yep.
Was there anything going on in your life with that theme that here in my home, I cannot be myself?
Well, that was starting to come into my consciousness. I mean, I was a girl raised in the South and we didn't have our identities other than big hair and
Yeah.
boobs,
Yeah.
So we weren't allowed to express ourselves openly. And it was, patriarchal type of situations. So there were some things that were starting to emerge and I just consciously did not know of them yet, but
You weren't
So-
aware yet. Okay, let's move forward. Let's move forward in time to 2004.
okay.
Now Uranus is at 3. It's obviously your sun. And I would say the months before, even before this, it's going to start trying to break up that sun Saturn. So what was going on with you when Uranus was hitting these two planets? When in 2004, you're 52, you're 56.
2004, my job is coming to an end that I had for 19 years is coming to an end.
Okay. Now, job stuff. What kind of job was it?
I was vice president of homeowners associations at a resort property in Colorado.
Okay, well, anything Virgo manages are usually very good. Okay,
Yeah,
you're in Colorado,
good.
you're managing these home associations. Did the job end abruptly?
Well, it was abruptly to me. I mean, I no longer fit into the corporate culture that was evolving.
Did you find that the main person was being mean about it?
Not outwardly mean, but boy, there was a lot of stuff going on below the surface.
Okay, now, question. Up until that time, the several months before, had you been giving good thought to wanting to get out?
I think, yeah, I had been without being consciously aware of it.
There's your secret.
Yeah,
So he
yeah.
came along to do the work for you.
yeah,
All right. And sometimes they do it nicely and sometimes they don't.
yeah.
And I had that happen to me too. And they threw me out, blackballed me from the computer field. The next thing you know, I landed in Pittsburgh with an astrology office.
It was,
Did what I wanted.
yeah, it was freeing once it ended, but I didn't, it was later, that I consciously am aware that I'm trying to get
Yeah.
out of the situation, but didn't know how.
Yeah, well, also you're a Virgo, and it's tougher on you than anybody, because Virgo's about shut up, no complaining inside, keep working.
Yeah, just work.
And Virgos really have been harping on that for 2-3 months, and you have to really get past that. Thank you very much. That was a good one, Kathy.
Mhm.
Let's talk with another. Since you girls are all watching, let's get another guy talking. And John's here now. Now there's 3 guys. Let's talk to Sigmund. Let's get Sigmund's chart up. We haven't talked with him in a long time. Let's get your chart ready, the recording. Okay, everybody, let's take a look. Sigmund, you get what you wish. This is your birth chart. Notice all the four planets in Libra, 5 planets in Libra in the 9th house. Only the 2 planets, the sun and moon in Virgo. 1946. In the outer wheels right at this moment. I do want to show you guys something because you may not know this, and you'll learn this as you keep going through astrology patterns. Sigmund has this phenomenal Jupiter, Neptune, Chiron conjunction. Now, it was stronger in 45 and 46. These are the years that the war ended. These are the aspects with Robert Fripp's chart, the phenomenal guitarist. These are the aspects in Van Morrison's chart, Neil Young's chart, Stephen Still's chart. People with these 3 planets in 1946, I'm sorry, I got it confusing here. Jupiter, Neptune. Here they are. Here's the 3. I'm getting them confused. So in 1946, you can see the Neptune, the Chiron, the Jupiter. That's what I was trying to point out. 7 degrees, 19 degrees, 24. During 1945-46, these 3 went back and forth, and some of the most phenomenal musicians were born, which is incredible native talent. So we see that actually, at this moment in time, we're seeing these 3 are starting to repeat. Okay, now, he wants to know what's going on now. And this is a good example how we started this 3 weeks ago. So my client calls and wants to know what's happening. His chart's ruled by Saturn. His rising sign is Capricorn. So his chart is ruled by Saturn. Okay, he's already a Capricorn, which is about, he's already a Virgo, which is about Earth sign getting work done. We see the Saturn in Leo is very strong. And the 1946-47 people, they all have this Saturn Pluto together in Leo, which means these people are really tough. If you ever back these people in a corner, just make a wish that you hadn't, because they don't like to fight. But if you back them in the corner, they can really be tough survivors, very strong. So what's going on in this chart? Well, we take a look at where's Pluto. Pluto is at 26. Pluto is going to go into Aquarius. So in 10, 15 years, Pluto is going to oppose all 3 of these. So we're going to have a lot to talk about then. Pluto's at 26. Pluto's squaring your Jupiter, which is no big deal. Okay, so let's go to Neptune next. Neptune's at 23. Neptune is far away from opposing the moon. So it's not Neptune. Let's look at Uranus. Uranus is 17. Okay, now we're starting to see the story. What's happening is this. Virgo people are very sensitive when their Mercury gets hit. They're ruled by Mercury. They're also ruled by Chiron. But when their Mercury gets hit, their ruling planet of their Mercury is the kind of Mercury which is analytical mind. I'm a good, strong, analytical person. So what's happening is Uranus is starting to square this Mercury at 19. You can see it's already been at 18 and it's just retrograded. So it's going back and forth, 17, 18, 19, and it's starting to square that Mercury. Now that Mercury is very sensitive. Not only is it a late 7th house Mercury, but it's the beginning of the 8th house. So that's a Mercury that's all about how do I think about relationships? What are my thoughts about like in relationships? With Mercury and Leo, it means I'm not going to take any fluff. I'm going to be a good partner because I got all this Libra, partner. But when Mercury gets hit in the 7th house, it's going to stand up for itself if it has to. So what we're seeing here is he's asking himself, am I able to be myself in my relationships? That's the primary energy that's focusing right now. It's not Pluto, it's not Neptune, it's the Uranus affecting the Mercury. So the Mercury is not just your marriage, it's in all your relationships. And the reason that it's critical is your Libra planets are not friends to you when it comes to you doing your thing. Libra planets are all about compromise, compromise, compromise. And the Mercury, under the auspices of Uranus, doesn't want to compromise anymore. Doesn't want to compromise. It wants to have its voice in natural settings. In my actual natural being, I should be able to be myself without having to compromise. Now, do these thoughts make any sense to you?
It makes perfect sense. I can feel that, very clearly.
Okay, now in your mind, being a strong Virgo, you define things so clearly. How are you defining this energy? And this energy has been coming on for about 3 years. It's been coming on more and more. And those Libra planets keep pushing it down because it causes disruption. And Libra can't stand disruption. Libra wants everything tactful. Okay, so you got this tactful, non-tactful, tactful, non-tactful argument starting to approach itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Now, there's no answer. I would definitely alert you to the fact we want to look and see when is Uranus going to square that Mercury at 1928. So if we look by months, okay, we're seeing in May of next year. We don't have the exact date, but this will be exact. In May of next year, Uranus will hit that Mercury exactly. So what that means is, and this is really good, if you're having difficulty communicating with somebody close to you and you have issues that need to be worked through, this is the time to start working through them together. Look, there's something we need to talk about. Let's work this out. What you don't want to happen, and I've talked about this so much, is suppress it till next May. Because then the shit hits the fan. Because as it's getting closer and you're successfully able to keep pushing it down, you're going to start thinking to yourself, oh, I can keep pushing it down. Wrong. So if there's difficulty with communications or you feel that you're not being heard, or this might be an issue with you, it might be an issue that you stop yourself from being heard and you think it's somebody else. You get the point?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay, so this is the story. This is how it works. And I always tell the story of the woman who comes down the steps in her nightie, and she's got the robe on, and she sees a note at the bottom of the steps that says, honey, I'm gone. Can't take anymore. That's the way you don't use a Uranus transit. And that person, that husband who left abruptly, should have felt that Uranus coming a year before, 2 years before, and investigated. Am I suppressing myself? Is my partner suppressing me? Let's get to therapy, talk about it. But that's the story here. And I know you pretty well. You are very much free spirit. And Uranus, it really supports people who are free spirits. So if you are in fact doing things to negate yourself, it's time to put an end to that. Because what you got tonight is you got a warning. You got till May. You got all those months as a warning that this issue is boiling inside. It's boiling. And it wants to come up. Okay?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks.
Any questions about that?
No, that's really clear, Rick. Thank you. I'm grateful to you for that.
Okay, now remember, it's going to be your Virgo that's going to want to suppress it, because Virgos suppress everything because there's no wanting allowed here. And it's going to be your Libra that's going to want to keep compromising. No. That's my favorite gesture lately. No. No, that's because I'm 70. And if I want to say no, I say no, no.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I can tell just briefly that at least in some circumstances that I've been focusing on, that being open and two-way and less combative
Oh, yeah. That's right.
is creates more openness and ease, and this is generally more helpful, and there's much less resentment. So I'm all for that.
Well,
I
that's really
appreciate
good. And another thing to know before I move on is Uranus is a really nice planet because it would rather you be friends than be married.
it.
I'm just giving you that as a clarity on the planet. So what Uranus really does is try to repair the friendship. And boy, there's nothing wrong with that. Get the friendship healed, everything else gets better. And this goes to all relationships. Well, good luck with it. But that's clearly how it goes. Thank you, Mr. Sigmund. Let's go to Diane. I'm going to all these people who I haven't seen or read for in a long time. And let me get the chart on the screen. Okay, Diane, it's nice to have you with us.
Well, thank you. It's
And
good
I'm
to
going to
be here.
share the screen without messing it up. Here's Diane's Aquarian chart. Here's the planets today. See what I was talking about, this eclipse that's coming? When that sun hits that moon, that will be an eclipse with Uranus on election morning. And the eclipse will be in Aquarius.
Mm.
So they will join together at the 16th degree of Aquarius up here. So we're getting there. And that means, yes, S hitting the fan. That's what that means. All right, now we're taking a look at Diane's chart. And it's hard to look at just a wheel like this and see the aspects without the lines, but I'm going to try to pick out what's interesting to me. This is no big deal at all. These are all the thousands and thousands of people born from 1960 to 1971. They all have Uranus and Pluto together. These are the two planets that in 1965 caused the 60s. Okay, she happens to have them both opposite Jupiter, which is different than a lot of people have them opposite Saturn, which you can see coming. All right, so we want to see in this birth chart, we got a moon in Gemini. We've got an intriguing Pluto opposite Jupiter with a T-square to the moon. So let's go back to the natal chart. Okay. I think this moon is worth looking at. Okay. You see in the birth chart, the Pluto-Jupiter opposition makes a T-square to that moon. And that moon is really volatile because it's in Gemini. And in Gemini, it is most volatile because it's so unsteady. We have another T-square to Neptune. Matter of fact, one of my favorite singers in the world has a chart that's almost identical to this. I was just telling you about Ava Cassidy, and I believe she's born one day later. Saturn's on the sun, the Pluto Jupiter, the T-square, she's got the moon in Gemini, she's got the T-square to Neptune, she's got Mars and Leo opposite her sun. You're within one day of Ava Cassidy's chart.
Cool.
So I don't know if you've ever tried singing, but you may want to listen to some Eva Cassidy, who died, unfortunately, at the age of 33. But if you've not heard her, listen to her on YouTube, you won't believe her.
Ava
You're
Cassidy.
within one day of her.
Nice.
Okay, so she died of, she got a small mole that she had operated. It was malignant. She had it operated on her back. And then a couple of years later, it manifested in pains in her leg and went throughout her body. It was very sad. So we see it in your chart. All this pressure is put on this moon in Gemini. I want to know when planets hit that moon. What happened? What happened when planets hit that moon? In your lifetime, Pluto's gone from here to here. So let's take Pluto back here about around 1990. And let's see what happened when Pluto opposed that moon. Moon being family, traditions, house, property, etc. So let's go take a look at that. Let's go back. Here comes Pluto coming backward to 20, right there, right there. 2004. Around 2004, Pluto, it had been building through 2001, 2002, 2003. It all hit when 2004 when it opposed that moon, which is in your 9th house. So what happened at that time?
2004. Well, let's see.
Were you in school?
No, I was married with 2 children by then.
2004, you would have been 37, 41, right? Such a midlife crisis is going on.
Yeah, that's
Uranus is Uranus. So you have the midlife crisis going on at the same time Pluto's hitting your moon. So that's what happens at 41, 42. So what happened? Can you recall?
2004.
Yeah. In general.
I think life was just unbalanced with my spouse.
What sign is your spouse?
He's an Aquarian.
Okay, so 2
He
Aquarians.
was. We're not married anymore.
2 Aquarians, okay. But what was happening in 2004?
I feel like I was the one raising the kids more so when he was working a lot. It was just an unbalanced relationship. It wasn't reciprocal.
Okay, well, you got Uranus opposite Uranus, which is the midlife crisis saying, am I being myself every day?
Nope.
Okay, those questions don't have to scream real loud to a native Aquarian, do they?
They don't, but I think I was suppressing it.
Well, you're a woman, you're in the USA, and that's the way we treat our women, that's for sure.
Right.
And that's changing, thank God. Yeah, but the Uranus was starting to work on you for several years.
Yes.
I want to do what I want to do. I want to do what I want to do. And then that other voice says, oh, you're being selfish. That other voice has to be told, no, I'm not being selfish.
Right.
I want to be who I am. Okay, well, then what's going on? And I could see it get pretty uncomfortable. The moon got threatened. Then what are we going to do with all the blown up pieces of this family? Correct?
Correct.
All right. So I think eventually you had to get to a point where you just let it blow.
Well, yeah, it did. It was March 25th of 2019.
Okay, so the planets
That
kept
was a
turning.
pivotal day.
Well, we got to a pivotal day and we'd see Mars or the sun. And actually things are dangerous, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to embarrass you or get into that kind of stuff. But when the moon gets hit, the moon is so important. Can I say that 5 more times? The moon, say it one more time, John.
Yeah, one more time.
The moon is so important.
The moon is so important, Ray.
The moon is so important because it represents your heart, your family, your money, your property, your mama, your family traditions. It's so central to you.
Mm.
And when you listen to Ava Cassie, who's one day different than you can see the moon in which she's singing, because even though that moon is in Gemini, she comes across very Cancerian. So when you have a T-square to the moon that's in Gemini, the fact that it's in Gemini is secondary.
Mm.
You're a lunar person.
Yes.
That's primary. And that makes you real Cancerian, which is very good for Aquarians. because Aquarians are not known for having a lot of TLC and warm emotionally. They're good friends, etc. But what happened to you is, I think the threat, it finally got to the point where the threat of what it was going to do to the family, it just trumped everything else in the charge, and you just had to go forward. True, false?
Wait, I went forward with and not get divorced for a while?
Yeah.
Or?
I think after Pluto hit that moon, you went forward to get the divorce.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I thought, if this is what life is going to be, this isn't the greatest life.
Yeah, but the point is, you were able to do it.
Oh yeah,
A
absolutely.
lot of people can't.
Yeah, it was
A lot of people can't.
tough, but yeah,
A lot of people can't. Well, congratulations to you. And I did pick out the most powerful moment in your chart. Now, since then, what's really good about this, since then, you're not going to do it to yourself again, are you?
No way.
You're going to keep your freedom, because that's
Ab-
that's the golden fleece for the Aquarians. Well, thank you very much.
Well, if there's one thing I can ask, like this past year from beginning of 2022 has been very tumultuous. I mean, not only the divorce and resign from my job, not all.
Okay, let's see what's been happening.
I sold my house in April, and it's just been.
Hold on one moment, please. I'll be glad to help you. Okay, so we've been having difficulties in general since when?
Since say January, February of this year.
January, okay. Okay. So it's starting out in January, right?
Right.
All right. Now we're going to see the story. Okay. Saturn has just returned and it's on your sun. So all the questions are about, well, I don't know about all this stuff, but how am I going to pay the bills?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's what Saturn does. Back problems?
No.
Knee problems?
No.
Good. All right. Well, they could be prevalent during this time. So we got Saturn here on the sun, which is really like added weight to you. And in 2022, you just got all this added pressure on you, added
Yes.
responsibility. And you have two kids. How old?
30 and 28.
Okay, and they're both going through their first Saturn return.
They are.
So you're having to get to that point where you can't let them come to you for money. They have to get it on their own.
Right. Yeah.
And that's not easy. Okay. All right. So you got Saturn on Saturn. You got Pluto. Remember, this is 2022. So everybody in the world has Pluto squaring Eris. Wait a minute. Pluto squaring Eris. There it is. There they are. Pluto squaring Eris. The whole world has that. The whole world has Saturn squaring Uranus. Okay, we got that going on too. So that's really tough with you. With the Aquarians have two rulers, Saturn and Uranus, and both of yours are square to each other. So and you're primarily a fourth house person with Saturn in the fourth house. What's happening here is there's a real natural, I found this since I wrote that book, I found this out. There's a natural argument that goes on between Aquarius and Cancer. These are things I found out after the book was written. I just seen it in the world. You see a lot of Cancers marrying Aquarians, which is really strange because it's not the best match. But what happens is you got two opposing energies. The Saturn wants everybody safe at home where there's money and the rain can't get through the roof and we got bread on the table. And the Uranus, because it's all important to Aquarians, because I'm able to be myself.
Mm-hmm.
And Saturn's real ready to volunteer always. Look at Lillian. How she gets right on the She gets right next to the camera with her green eyes. Why did she get next to the camera, Marcia? Huh? You're muted or something. I think you're muted.
She likes to watch you.
Oh, she ain't watching me. Oh, poor the goofy cat. Beautiful green eyes.
Oh,
Okay. What's happening in your chart? And I see that I'm going to just tell you straight out what I think is going on. This is the most difficult thing in astrology. When a client comes to you and a client is favoring their physical life in terms of possibly suppressing themselves because they're worried about security. True or false?
true.
This is the story. Now, you ain't going to like the answer because the answer is tough and it's the toughest one for all of us. You've got to get to the point where you have faith.
Sure.
And that faith, and that's really hard for Capricorns and Aquarians because Capricorns and Aquarians have all their faith in themselves. And the same what I'm talking about. Have faith that the universe is going to help you out. It's going to work out. And I'll tell you right now, out of the blue, you show up on this show and you're selected to talk about it. And we're talking about this. This is a major, major symbol that if you go ahead and let go of the physical worries and put more hopes into your own individual expression, it's going to work for you. Are you in fact suffering because you're not allowing yourself out?
Yeah, somewhat, but I'm emerging.
Okay, and it's getting better?
Yes.
Okay, well, you're lucky because Saturn and Uranus are square for everybody on the planet. And everybody's going through this fight right now. So all I can tell you is the more faith you put up here and the more faith you put up, realizing that the food will get on that table somehow, the better. Because I have seen so much trouble happen to people when they put all their money on staying secure, because there is no such thing as security. And that was quoted by, what's her face? Helen Keller.
Mm.
There is no such thing as security. Security means how well you row the boat. Doesn't mean how do I get the boat locked up on a tree. You get in the boat and you start moving, how well you manage that boat. And I'm telling you that your reading tonight, there's no doubt in my mind that this is the most significant one because it just happens that way. During readings, I can usually tell which is the most important. And this is a validation to you to let go and start moving and have faith. Okay.
Okay.
You may want to get a reading too.
All right.
Personal reading. Thank you very much. Let's move on to more newcomers. Let's talk to Marty. Marty's hardly ever here. Asking her to unmute her.
There you go.
We will pause that start. Okay, Marty, let's see what's going on with you. Did you have a particular question or do you want me to just go into the chart?
Just go.
Okay. All right. So I've read your chart many times. Let me okay. So we see Moon Saturn again here. We didn't see like Sun Saturn, but we see Moon Saturn is really, really, really the critical thing in this chart. I've known this for many years. I've been reading for you for a long time. So anytime this Moon Saturn gets hit, it's going to be just what I was talking about. Even though you're a Libra, Moon Saturn people they want things safe at home. They want things secure, and they don't like risk. And they have to fight all the time for their own independence versus bringing home the bacon. So what we want to see here is Uranus. And Uranus would hit this around age 23, 24. So that would have been immense around that time. And then Uranus is up here at 3 degrees. Uranus is going to get to 3 degrees Gemini. So here we go. We can do this in our private readings. Uranus is about to leave Taurus. It's about to go into Gemini. And then the next few years, in about 2 years, it's going to be here. It's going to be opposite this moon Saturn. Okay. And what that means is you are going to be ready inside, prepared to bust this up. Okay. The moon Saturn won't control you as much as it does now. And we're going to see when it hits up there, we'll have plenty of time to talk about it. It's going to be very liberating. Now, I want to go back and find out what happened when Uranus got to 3. Because when it got to 3, it started to square that moon. And 4, 5, it hit your midheaven. So when Uranus got to 3, 4, 5, would have been around age 45. Let's go take a look. Okay, Marty, we're looking at around, we're looking about the 0304. 0304, it's coming near Pisces and it's starting to, wait a minute, let me make sure I get this right. Yeah, it's in Aquarius. No, that's not right. 3 says, yeah. So 304. So that moon Saturn of yours got blasted by Uranus at that time. 0304. Bill, bring up any bells?
Not off the top of my head. When you mentioned age 23, 24, that meant something to me. But 03, 04, I'm not thinking of anything.
So 23, 24 is 78. Did you say 23 years of age? 79. Okay, so here we see Uranus.
January of 79 was the kicker.
Okay, what happened then?
My father passed away. We were very close.
Here's the bottom of the chart. Here's Saturn, the dad. I'm sorry to hear that. What sign was he?
Taurus. Both my parents were Taurus.
Well, when you lose a Taurus, it's like losing 2 of your supports. I mean, they're so much the support system to the family.
Yeah.
And they're just so solid. Wonder what happened when Uranus went up and hit this Saturn.
I'm sorry, was that a question?
Yeah, I'm talking to myself.
Okay.
A couple years later. 81. 81 when Uranus hit this Saturn. Hit this Saturn moon. What happened then? Was this a job change?
I honestly don't remember. Could have been.
Okay. Hold on. Okay, what we're looking at here, Marty, is Neptune right now is about 26. It's going to get that's 29 here. Oh, okay. When it gets to 29, which is a couple of years, you're going to have this growing intuition. The next couple of years, your intuition is going to really start growing because it's here and it's going to get to 27, 28, 29. And when it gets to 29, 27, it's going to be opposite your Mercury. So it's going to start very soon, like a month from now. It's going to start soon. And when it gets to 29, it's going to square this line. And when it squares that line, your Mercury in Virgo is going to start giving up control. And what that means is your Mercury in Virgo all your life has had control of your relationships. And now Neptune's going to take over. And this is a really good transit. And I've seen it with a lot of people. And what's going to happen is you're going to really start internally, because Libra is a intellectual sign. Libra is here to teach other people how to think properly. Well, as Neptune hits your thinker, as it hits your Mercury, you're not going to be that interested anymore in your thinker. You're going to become more interested in your heart and more in your intuition. So you'll still have that strong Mercury in Virgo with which to make decisions. But when it gets closer to Pisces, when it gets closer to 29 Pisces, you're going to start feeling intuitive. You're going to want to, you might even want to take up such things as reading tarot cards, which is, have you ever done that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I highly recommend that you do it during this time, because that's a real good way to get started with nudging the intuitive parts of you. But you're going to start to see the built-in faultiness of Mercury. You're going to start to see the built-in over-dependence on the intellect that we have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And you'll start to really feel it. It'll start to bring people to you that maybe want to do readings. It may bring intuitive groups to you that maybe you'll want to join, intuitive books that you want to read about. That kind of thing. Does that make any sense to you?
I come from a long line of psychics, so yes, it makes a lot of sense.
Very good. And that's not a Libra thing. So that's kind of interesting to find that out. Well, I think you're going to be shocked and you're going to be stunned at how powerful it's going to be. And when it's really exact, I'll be around to talk to. Because when it's exact, it can be goofy time. You know, because you feel like you're on quicksand, you feel like you can't get any firm footing, and there can be several months of kind of confusion till it passes. It's going to go back and forth 3 times. But all in all, it's a very good symbol of you getting closer to your God.
Cool.
You communicating better with everybody. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'm going to wrap it up by talking about a couple of things. Next week, I'll be showing you the chart of November 7th, November 8th at 7 in the morning. And it's an eclipse that day of the election. It's with Uranus. And see, we get all flipped out when we see the newspapers, eclipses and full moons. But what we never taught is what's with it. Is it with another planet? Whew, that's a whole different story. If an eclipse is here, and then the eclipse is here with another planet, that planet becomes the enormous favor to that the message. And Aquarius in Taurus is all about breaking loose for freedom. Now, it's interesting because if you're looking at the news, which if you can stomach the news, if you're looking at the left and the right politically, both sides think they're doing the best they can for the best of the country. The left thinks it is, the right thinks it is. You're not going to convince anybody. They're going to argue till they're blue. But that's going to be the theme here. But remember now, Uranus is involved with the election. Okay? Uranus is in Taurus. When Uranus is in Taurus, it's the most dependable part of our country. It's the thing we've always depended on. It's never changed. By God, New Hampshire votes first. Iowa votes first. All these things are going to change. All these things, the way they count the votes per state and all, electoral college, all these things are going to be up for grabs. But you're going to see some funny money at the polls. You're going to see people trying all kind of good ones. And with Uranus, I mean, you've already seen it with the January 6th Capitol thing. You've already seen the craziness. The craziness is not over. Here's the reason that the craziness is not over. I show you. Okay. I want you to take a look at the Republicans chart. Okay. Now I told you for years coming up on 2018, I think I started telling you in 2013 what was coming up in 2018. And I was telling you about the dissolution of the GOP party, that it was going to fall apart because it's spiritually bankrupt. That's exactly what happened in 2018. Because in 2018, Neptune returned to Neptune. After 164 years, Neptune went all the way around and it returned. And during a Neptune return, it's like God makes you naked and takes a look and say, let me see here. What are you like naked? What are you really made of spiritually? And we saw the decay of the party happen, and we saw all the Trumpism stuff going on. But what's so fascinating about that is Neptune is now up here at 23, but it's still largely impacting the Neptune return. But what happened in the past year is that Uranus returned. Uranus went around twice, 84 years, 160 something. So you had a Uranus return happening in the aftermath of the Neptune return. Let me explain to you what that means. And the Neptune return was the chance for the GOP to become a spiritual body, to become very sincere about its family-oriented stuff, about its pro-human stuff. But no, they chose to continue the smoke and mirrors, which was the thing that we were afraid of. So after the Neptune return happened and the Wicked Witch got water on us and she turned to smoke, things got even worse. So what happens then in the middle of all this puddle when you find out Uranus has returned? What do you think a Uranus return can do on top of a puddle? A very healthy country in the middle of a Uranus return with a healthy Neptune return would use their Uranus return. You guys keep writing me messages and I just don't have time to read them. And they're really distracting me. I'm sorry. Okay. If you had a healthy Neptune return, the country would get based on churches that are proper churches, on spirituality that's proper spirituality, which is leading everybody towards the God center inside themselves. But that didn't happen. So after the Neptune and the Wicked Witch, and I'm not saying the Democrats are any better, but after the Wicked Witch smoked away and the Uranus return came, it's time for revolution. Well, there are two kinds of revolution. There's a good kind, bad kind. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of people trying to get grassroots campaigns started to rebirth this country, which is going through its Pluto return, which is all about let's be reborn in the light that we want to be. So how do you pull off a Uranus return on top of something that's not stable? The only way you do it is you get more and more perverted. That's all that can happen. All that can happen for the near future is more and more perversion. And I don't mean sexually, I mean just this distortion. And who thought of that? And that's crazy and that's wild. Because Uranus returns are based on we're all going to work together. We're all going to work together to make things better. So we've got the tools out there. The tools are there, but that's why things are so nuts. So this Uranus thing is coming to a head on election day. Now, I don't know what will happen. Pray God nobody dies. And hopefully they go smoothly, but who knows? Anyhow, that's what I'll be talking about next week's show. Today was interesting to me because you got to see a lot of real people with real planets hitting real parts of their chart. And that's why it's good for you to learn your chart, to learn what sensitive points you have in your chart, and to go back in time and find out what planets hit that point and what happened during those certain dates. You've all been very patient, even Shelby. Appreciate you all. I'll see you next week. And everybody, get ready.
Thank you, Rick.
We're heading towards the holidays.
Yay.
Yay.
Uh-oh.
Thank
Take
you,
it
Rick.
easy, Mars retrograde. We don't have the energy we used to have. And don't spend too much money. We're in a recession.
We're getting good advice from the Taurus here. Don't spend your money. Be careful. What do the Virgos? What do the Virgos have to say to us? Come on,
Not much.
not much.
Get your vaccinations.
Love you all. Get your vaccination.
Yeah,
next
thank
week.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Rick.